It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Divas That Care Network. My name is Candace Gish. I am the founder of the program, and I am the host for today's show. I am just so excited. I'm going to be welcoming back a former diva. A guest has been on our program a few times here, and I'm excited to have her back. You know, she's so inspirational. She's doing so many great things, and I know, especially what's going on in the world today, I think you're going to love today's topic. So welcome back to the show, Stacey Berger. I'm so happy to have you.
Oh, thanks so much, Candace. It's so great to be here.
Yay! Oh, my goodness. We're going to have so much fun today. But, Stacey, before we get started, would you mind kind of reintroducing yourself maybe to some of our new listeners that have tuned in?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, professionally, I am a transformational coach in both life and business. And my background, climbed that corporate ladder, was in an executive position, loved what I was doing in the world for a long time. It afforded me a really nice lifestyle, was doing work that I loved. And then all of a sudden there was a couple of things going on in my life that were catalysts for some change. And I'm sure we can all think of a time where we woke up and we didn't want to go to work and do the things that we needed to do. And that's where I found myself. And for me, the two things that were happening in my world were, number one, there was a lot of changes going on in the industry that I was in. There was things happening in the company that I worked for where I was no longer able to make the impact I once was able to make. And there were some things happening that didn't line up with my core values. And the other thing that was happening was I now had 3 little kids at home, and there was this pull inside of me where I wanted to have more time freedom to be with my family, but also love my career and make a bigger impact. And so I really had that feeling there's got to be more to life than this. And at the same time, I felt trapped. My husband's a stay-at-home dad. I've got a family of 5 to support, and it really felt like I was stuck. And I don't know, Candace, if you've ever been there, but that's where I was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, my whole life I've loved personal development. I love spiritual development. And so it was like I was living in these 2 worlds. I had my corporate hat, that business hat, and then I had this personal development. And those 2 things felt very, very separate. Looking back, I can see that the reason I was successful in my career was because of the personal development and the things that I was learning and doing. And I was always the person that people would come to and say, hey, I'm not happy. I'm struggling with this. And I always knew that they could be happy and they could do things differently, but I didn't have the tools to support them. And I would say, well, if you're not happy, do something about it. That was the best advice I could give. And there was a time where I just said, you know what, this is enough. Life is too short. I'm tired of sacrificing my kids' childhood for work that doesn't light me up anymore. And I made some pretty significant decisions to leave that corporate job and pursue launching my own business, which I never thought I would do. Never thought I could work from home, but really discovered a transformational system that I fell in love with and wanted to help more people live lives that they love. And so I've been doing that now for almost 6 years as a speaker, teacher, coach, working with clients from all over the world to really get clarity on their life purpose, what they want to do, and then how to cross that gap from where they are to where they want to go. And I take them through a system of success to help them do that. And I absolutely love it.
That is so awesome. And you do so many amazing things. And I think when you and I had first talked, a few years ago, I'm like, this woman is amazing. Look at all the things that she's doing and how she's helping people. And you could really hear it in your voice, the passion that you have for this. And you, like, what I want to talk about today is why you think it's really important. You know, I know that there's a lot of change going on in the world. Why is it important to maybe have today's show?
Great question. I think it's so important. I think we're in what I would call a global awakening. There's an evolution, or we're evolving right now, and unfortunately, a lot of times evolution and growth comes in the form of chaos. And so if you can imagine a time where you were trying to clean out a closet or your garage, and there's a point in that process where it's a disaster and it's way worse and you get overwhelmed and you don't know if you're going to be able to put it all back together. Do you know what I'm talking about, Candace?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe that's where we're at right now. We're in this chaotic stage, and it's very real, and people are confused, and they're hurting, and they're fearful, and they're overwhelmed. And I think it's at this point right now, if we have some tools to help us really stay the course, what's on the other side of this can be beautiful, not only individually, but also collectively. And so I think this is the time where I feel like I've got so many incredible tools. I'm so grateful for them in my own life, and I want more people to have access to them.
Oh, I love that. And it's so true. And we're being overwhelmed and bombarded one thing after another. And I think that people are just, they don't know what to do anymore. They're just so overwhelmed, like you were saying. And so let's talk about some strategies that we can present to the world, you know, really get it out there. You know, our show is definitely a global program. And, you know, you've got some tips and tools that maybe others have never heard before. So I'm excited for you to be sharing that with all of us today.
Yeah, and what I would say is some of these tools may be new and some of them probably aren't new. The key is to be reminded to actually put them in practice. And I think lots of us, we have lots of tools in our tool belt, but we forget they're there or we're not applying them. And just to know that the way that they work is through the application. And so hopefully people are inspired to maybe dust them off or put them into practice because they really, really do work. So the first thing that I want to remind us of is our most powerful tool is our breath. And we know that breath is life. Without breath, there is no life. And we, I think, take our breath for granted. It's not something we have to think about where our bodies are breathing us for most of the day. But what happens is when we get into fear, overwhelm, we get paralyzed. What happens is we're breathing really, really shallow. And when we're triggered by what's going on in the world or how that's impacting us or conversations that we're having with friends and family and what we're seeing on social media, what happens is our nervous system gets triggered and we stop breathing. And not that we stop breathing, but we stop breathing well. And so we go into that fight or flight part of our nervous system. And when we're in that fight or flight part of our nervous system, we're not in a position where we can think, where we can really have clear perspective. And so we're just reacting and responding. And so one of the best ways to switch from that fight or flight part of our nervous system into the rest, digest, relax part of our nervous system is by breathing in a certain way. And so the method of breathing to help relax our nervous system, relax our bodies, is we inhale through our nose, and I would invite everybody to do this right now, just inhaling through your nose in a relaxed manner, and then exhaling through your mouth as if you're breathing through a straw. So inhaling through your nose and exhaling. And just by doing that 3 times, just 3 times, all of a sudden you'll start to feel this relaxation start to set in. And so just like a pharmacist or a doctor would prescribe a medication, 3 times a day or as needed, breathing in that particular way 3 times a day or as needed will help to remove some of that stress, some of that anxiety, some of that worry, some of that fear, and help us be in a more creative mindset.
You know, Stacey, I think that when you had first told me that years ago, I started doing that, and it made such a difference. And it's a technique that I use all the time, and I have to always remind myself to use it.
And it's so simple, yet if it's not top of mind, easy to forget. The second thing or the second tool is connecting to our vision. So if people don't have a vision, they don't have goals, I've got some tools and resources available that I can share with the group, Candace. But life isn't seeking, our goals don't stop. We don't stop dreaming. We don't stop wanting for things just because there's a global pandemic. We have dreams, we have visions, we have goals. And we want to keep those really top of mind. So I talk about vision-based living or condition-based living. And condition-based living is when we're looking at our conditions or our circumstances to determine how we feel, to determine the action steps we take, to determine what we think is possible for us. And there are a lot of conditions and circumstances right now. And if we just focus on that and we forget our vision, we forget our dreams, we're just reacting to the world as it's happening around us. And we're allowing other people's agendas, other people's initiatives, other people's opinions to determine our future. And this is what we call living by design or living by default. And most people on our planet today are operating and simply living by default. They're letting their history determine what's going to happen for them. They're allowing their kids, their spouses, their parents, economists, politicians determine their results. And there's another way, and that's called living by design or vision-based living. So to keep your vision, your goals, your dreams top of mind and not put them, I always say, sometimes we set our dreams, we set our goals, and then they just stay in our journals or they end up in the nightstand, and we only visit them once a year. But the more we're connected to our dreams, our visions, our goals on a daily basis, we start to impact our future. We impact how we're living our life today, and we impact what's going on around us. So keeping that vision top of mind.
Stacey, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I know that you are a huge vision board person. You love vision boards. You love teaching people about vision boards. I have had a vision board on my wall for years. How often does a person change their vision boards? We're talking about goal setting and thinking about that. Is this something that we change on a regular basis, or is it something that we keep for a long time?
It's a great question. The way that I look at vision boards, and a vision board is great. There's so much more to than just having a vision board. I want to say that. What I like to, when you think about your vision and your goals and your dreams, they evolve because we evolve. We manifest some things, we do some things, circumstances change, and so it's constantly evolving. So the piece about that I think is really important to note, though, Candace, is never change your vision or your goals because you're in a state of fear, or I don't think this can happen, or I don't know how it's going to happen. So we want to make sure that when we're changing our vision or expanding our vision, it's done from an expansive, inspired state. Most people change their goals and their visions because they're not seeing the results, so they don't think it's possible. So they're hopping from one thing to another, and they just spin their wheels.
That makes a lot of sense. Having that clear vision and, not giving up on it is what we need to do.
Yeah. So here's the third thing. So we've got our breath, we're connecting to our vision, and then the third piece is taking action. So what can happen is when we get into a place of fear, of doubt, of worry, of anxiety, of uncertainty, we can tend to freeze or get paralyzed or feel like I've got to wait for things to settle down, or I have to wait and see what's going to happen. And there's certainly a time to go inwards and for contemplation, but one of my mentors says, don't pitch a tent there. And action is one of the best ways to move energy. And so moving our bodies, calling a friend, what's one thing I can do today in service of my dreams or my goals? And it's the number one antidote to self-doubt, to fear, to worry, is being in action and serving your dream. So I would just invite everyone to really look at, how have I served my goals lately? What have I learned recently? Is there something that I know I could be doing that I'm not doing right now because I've been paralyzed with that fear? And commit, and these don't have to be great big action steps. This can be 5 minutes a day. What could I do in 5 minutes today in service of my goals, my dreams, my visions? And that will help to move that energy and shift the momentum.
I like that. And I love how you said that you can do it in 5 minutes, because I think a lot of people get overwhelmed and they think, if I've got this vision, I need to do it all or nothing.
Yeah.
And things don't happen overnight. We have to take baby steps. I always it doesn't happen, like the whole vision. And I look back and I said, 10 years, I've done all this stuff in 10 years. It's like, I didn't do it overnight. And I think that's what people have to realize, is that, you have these goals, but you can't do it overnight. And I love when we have amazing guests on our program like yourself, because you really put it into perspective. Because I think people think instant gratification, if they don't have it right away, then we need to change. And that's what you're saying. It's like, no, let's just take a deep breath. Let's focus on our dreams, our goals, and, take those steps that you need to get to that point.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be where you are today, Candace, if you wouldn't have taken those little steps. But it's those little steps taken over the last 10 years that have created the success today. It wasn't just one giant step, right?
No. And I think it would have been overwhelming. And I think that's what we need to realize, is that things become overwhelming when you think you need to do them all at once. But if you surround yourself with amazing individuals, you have mentorship and you have coaching by people like Stacy, you realize that, okay, I can take a breath. I don't have to do this all overnight. I can take the time in order to make my dreams come true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's one other thing that I'm seeing right now, Candace, that I would love to address. And
yes.
I think it's an important piece to it, is being a safe place for ourselves and for other people in our circles and other people on the planet, being a real safe place for people to fail. And I think one of the things that's causing that anxiety right now is people don't know what they can say or what they can do and what's okay, and they're afraid of the criticism and what will people think. And I think there's just such an opportunity right now for us to really be gentle on ourselves, that we're not going to do it perfectly, and to allow other people around us to make mistakes and to say the wrong things and to do the wrong things, and that we're not going to judge and criticize, including ourselves and other people. And again, success, a hallmark of successful people, is failure. And we know that with our kids. They didn't ride their bike perfectly the first time, and they didn't say their ABCs perfectly the first time, but we were a safe place for them to grow and to learn. And I think there's a huge opportunity right now for us to be a safe place for ourselves and for our communities to not get it perfectly. And we're not going to condemn and criticize and judge, but to say, hey, it's okay. Let's figure this out. Let's do better next time.
I like that advice. I really love that. And I think, it's really important to stress that to our younger generations that are really overwhelmed. I know that with my family, we have our oldest daughter is graduating high school this year, and there's been a lot thrown at her in 1 year. And I think that we need to, be gentle, like you're saying, like let them breathe, let them try to figure this out, be there to support them, be there to support not just the young generation, but just everybody, because there's just so much out there. And I like how you said, let's be that safe place for them to, make the mistakes that we make, because we're only human.
Absolutely. And there's so much with especially social media with negative comments and backlash. And there's this fear of, like I say, doing the wrong thing. But if we're too afraid to try things, we're not going to grow. So that's so important.
I love that. That is perfect advice. Stacey, is there anything else that you'd love to share with us today? I know that you do have a lot of workshops going on. You do so much out there. Is there something that perhaps you can share with our tribe, our listeners today, that maybe they can get involved with?
Yeah, I would. So I have a vision creation support tool, and that's the piece that I always suggest people start with. So if anybody is interested in really getting clear about, okay, if I need to stay connected to my vision, but I don't know what my vision is, how do I start? And so it's a 30-minute audio. It's guided to help you really ask some powerful questions, take some time with a journal and a pen in a quiet room and really sit down and do some self-reflection. And so I would encourage people to check that out. You can find it on my website, staceyberger.ca/vision. And the other thing is I do have a YouTube channel where there's well over 100 different videos. They're 3 to 5 minutes. They're mindset tools. And to subscribe to that and to access that resource, those are the two things that I would encourage people to get involved with.
I love that. And we're going to be posting that on our website and all of our social media also, because I think it's really important for people to check that out. I love it. Stacey, is there any other last-minute things you'd love to share with our amazing listeners today? I appreciated you taking the time, because I know how busy you are.
Yeah, I would just say that there's nothing going wrong here, that we are all meant to dream, to live more expanded lives, and to just keep listening to that part of you that's saying, I want more, and to be okay with that, and to know that you're not alone, and certainly surrounding yourself with coaches, with mentors, with community. It's a powerful way not to only lift other people up, but to also be lifted.
Thank you so much. I want to say a big thank you to my amazing guest, Stacey Berger. It's always a pleasure to have you on our program. I know that you're going to be on one of our other hosts' upcoming programs here too. So I want to encourage all of our listeners to go and check that program out too. I know it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Anything that you share with us, Stacey, is always informational and so helpful to all of us. So a big thank you from the Divas That Care.
Thanks, Candace.
I love that. And you know what, guys, I want to thank each and every one of our listeners today for tuning in. It's because of you that we've continued our program for 10 years now, and we have an amazing arrangement of hosts, and we hope that you check them out at divasthatcare.com. Remember, you can listen to all of our programs through Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, anywhere you listen to a podcast. And again, thank you so much, Stacey, and all of our amazing listeners. I will be posting Stacey's program on our Divas That Care website, so make sure that you check her out and all the amazing things that she does. Until next time, everybody, take care.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.